Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello.
Hello, Trace. Coming up on the fastest UCF show around, second scrimmage. What are big takeaways from it? What does this mean for UCF moving forward? Any concerns about the coaching staffs? We'll discuss that, break it all down, and much more on this edition of Around the Kingdom.
Well, before we get going with all of that, Elo, let us welcome in the third member of our team. He is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF, keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Gentlemen, glad to be back. I'm glad to have some sports in my life. I turned on my TV at 8 a.m. looking for skeet shooting, and it's gone. The Olympics have left me, but luckily I always have you in Around the Kingdom.
All right, Adam. Check back with you in a few. Elo, you mentioned it. Second scrimmage of UCF football preseason camp is in the books. You know, we don't get to see it, but the joke there, you and I exchanged messages. Media not allowed to see it, but anybody that's a shareholder that went feels free to Twitter about it and mention it in the message boards. But from what you've read, what you heard from Coach Malzahn and players, any takeaways from scrimmage number 2?
Yes, that you can't coach a scrimmage without one of these bad boys, right? Right? I mean, this is how is this not being sold more? Like, you would look fantastic in this, Trace. One of these episodes, you're going to have to
I don't think I can carry it as well as you.
We could debate. Adam could be the referee on that. So what was the takeaways from second scrimmage? Obviously, it's limited. I still don't get a sense that Gus is happy with this team at all. Am I reading, like, he still talked about penalties? He said, well, they lowered them down, but there was 9. There was a penalty that took away a touchdown. He threw under the bus last year's staff. I don't know, Trace. What's your vibe there? I don't. It's hard to get a read on it.
The energy was different than the first week and the first scrimmage. Practice ended early. We were getting text messages that the media availability would start early and then earlier, and not everybody made it when it started. Gus was in a bit of a mood, it seemed. Not particularly happy, I didn't sense. You mentioned it, though. Penalties, hey, cut down from 18 to 9, so that's progress, Elo. Gus frustrated that the defense didn't force any turnovers, and I think if they're going to have success in 2024, you're going to need to see the defense generating more turnovers. So the vibe was off on this one.
Well, especially if you're going to be a much more aggressive defense, right? More blitzing. That's the whole point of that, is to force more turnovers. My question to you, though, Trace, is if you're going to be a more aggressive defense, right? That's the sense they want. Isn't that also going to include more penalties that come with that? I wonder if you want your team to be more physical, more aggressive, that might come with more penalties as a result. I'm not sure if that's fixable. We'll see. We'll see about that. So I don't know. We're not feeling great for scrimmage, although maybe we are definitely overreacting to it. After all, nobody's seen actual plays. But Trace, what are you feeling better about UCF football this year?
This may surprise you, Elo. Feeling better about Ted Roof and his defense and what you just mentioned there, being more aggressive. Now, whether they have all of the personnel that they need in year 2 in the Big 12 to pull off Ted Roof's defense, I'm not sure. We're going to see how it plays out. And I know the easy joke is to say, well, I got to be better, right, against the run. But I'm starting to believe in Ted Roof's defense from what I'm hearing from players. And there's a bond there with Ted Roof. When John Walker stepped up to the mic and was at the podium, Ted Roof stayed in the back and listened to his interview. And there's a camaraderie there. You hear that from the players. So I think they are bought in as we head into, the last couple weeks of preseason camp.
Well, clearly you're such a Ted Roof apologist. You're boys. You're tight. Makes sense. I feel good about the running game and the physicality. I mean, it seems like one of the things we do take away, it seems like each running back is making a play each game we hear about, right? Like RJ Harvey, I don't think they're using as much, which is smart. But Boone is apparently he's having a good fall camp. So is Cincinnati's kid Montgomery. Apparently Johnny Richardson too. I don't know how all these guys are going to get footballs. But as I told the running back coach on media day, it's a good position to be in. I think this could be the best running game UCF has had since Kevin Smith 2007. Might be the best as a combined running back staff room when we look back at this, hopefully 5-10 years from now. I really do believe this has a chance to be a top 10 running offense, which is a very vintage Gus Malzahn offense. If you look back at his Auburn days when they played for the national title in 2013, they were a dominant running game.
Yeah, for all the talk of that, passing game, it's Gus Malzahn's philosophy. He wants to run the ball, and everything is in place to do that. Deep running back core, you do feel good about that. All right, flip side, Elo, what are you still nervous about?
I'm nervous about the special teams. And I think Gus even mentioned that. What was the words? I don't want to misquote him on the scrimmage second. He said they stunk in special teams last year or something, like they were terrible kick returns. Like he was not. I tell you, I've been impressed. He just
which unit was it that folded like a cheap suit? I forget all of the words.
I mean, he is just still hates last year. But anyway, no special teams. I don't know what to expect from this kick return if they're going to do anything on the return game. I don't know if we're better. Colton Boomer will be better this year or not. I don't know if we're going to be a better punt return team. Are we going to block a kick? I don't know. Based on, they have some different personnel they mentioned on special teams. I don't know. Is that going to make a difference? That's one part.
We're still in the talking season, and I just mentioned that I feel better about Ted Roof's defense, but that doesn't mean I'm sold on the defense. So I'm still nervous about what the Knights are going to do. Do I think they're going to be better? Yes, I do. And certainly it's going to be interesting to see how all of the new faces come together. But that doesn't mean that they have closed the gap on late fourth quarter games, especially on the road. The difference between that 6-6, 7-5 kind of season and a 9-3 or more special season, I'm not there yet. Maybe there's somewhere in between. I'm still nervous about the potential for this team and whether they will realize it.
I'm a little nervous about the wide receiving core. Who is going to be the guys outside of Kobe Hudson and Xavier Townsend? What happens, Trace, if one of them goes down with an injury, Kobe Hudson or Xavier Townsend? Can this team have enough behind them to offset a loss there potentially if you lose one of those guys? I don't know if they do. That is a concern about that and the passing game as a whole to complement this running game, because I think the passing game is going to have opportunities to make big plays, because I would believe teams are going to stack the line to try to stop UCF's running game and make you beat you over the air. But do you have the weapons to scare off the other team's secondary? I don't know. Not sure. A little nervous there because I haven't really heard much about them. All right. Well, preseason camp, of course, ongoing. Let me ask you this, Trey. There's been some changes. Gus has alluded to it. He feels this is a much better coaching staff than last year. He hasn't been shy about it. That's for sure. What are the biggest questions you have about this coaching staff?
Gus Malzahn, right? I mean, I think it's what we talk about. And that's going to be the theme for the next couple of segments here, right? He makes the difficult things seem easy, but he'll make the easy things so challenging. And, he has said that this team needs to reflect his personality. I felt kind of through his coordinators last year, Addison Williams on defense, Darren Hinshaw on offense, a little under the bus there. Interestingly enough, both of those guys still a part of this coaching staff, right? So I want to see Gus get out of his own way, but he's regained play calling. And, when you say he took over play calling last year and they finished strong against a weaker part of the schedule, okay, so I don't know, some scapegoating there. I'm not sold. We're going to talk about Mike Bianchi's column in the Orlando Sentinel and Gus Malzahn, and I think he's a good coach. Can he take it another level this year? I'm still not sure.
My biggest question is about your BFF, Ted Roof. I mean, will it work? Right? Like, it's great to see this aggressiveness. I had a good talk with him. I get the concept. I like the fact they're going to be more aggressive because I agree. I thought they were a little too passive at times last year, but that doesn't mean it's going to work within a year. And it doesn't mean that the personnel is going to work. What if they get gashed? Is it going to work? Ted Roof's, we'll see. I don't know. I honestly have no idea about this defense. You could tell me they're going to be much improved and create turnovers and it works, or you could tell me that it doesn't work and they still struggle. I don't have a sense on this at all. It could go either way. And this, in a lot of ways, will define how good and the ceiling of UCF's 2024 football season. I just don't know, Trace, at all. I believe in the concept. I just don't know if the execution will be there or not. Trace.
Let's stay with the theme of Gus Malzahn. Hey, does Mike Bianchi, the Orlando Sentinel columnist, collaborate with you? Did he read your defensive column of Johnny Dawkins that we get more from Johnny than we give him, because he's certainly defending Gus Malzahn in his column, UCF fans better start appreciating Gus Malzahn or else, nice nation, you risk losing Gus Malzahn to another program. You read Mike Mack, resident provocateur, right? That's what his job is. Clicks and chatter. Do you support what he said, though?
I never used or else in my defense, in my column defense of Johnny Dawkins, all right? And I would not have used that if I'm Mike, but he clearly wanted a reaction. So all you people that went after me, go after Mike. No, look, I get where he's saying. Gus is supposedly doing a great job in recruiting. He's doing a lot of good positives within the program. There was a video that came out on Monday with the Varsity Knights, which you knew about. Actually, you tipped me to this, where they held all the former alums and everything for a luncheon, I believe. And then there's a lot of positives. But to your point, you got to produce on the field. And Gus would be the first to tell you this. You got to win something 9-10 games. People said the same thing about Scott Frost and what happened. Scott Frost hasn't been heard from since. He probably misses UCF more. Josh Heupel, like, this program has gone through coaches and been able to adapt. So I don't believe, like, if you lose Gus, that you all of a sudden can't find somebody, especially now that UCF's a Power 4 job. I think that's a little bit too much there, I think, for Mike, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the program, if Gus Malzahn moves along to another job, program continues to build. I think there are a lot of things you give Gus Malzahn credit for. But, hey, it's year 4, okay? Time to produce. He's got the quarterback he wanted. He's made those changes. He's calling plays. Time to produce. And what will that number be and wins?
Well, can I give you a hot take?
Fan base?
Let me give you a hot take on this. See if you agree or disagree. I think the UCF football head coaching job is the easiest head coaching job on campus of all the UCF coaching jobs. Because you have the facilities. You're in the right state. You can pluck in talent. You've got a great fan base. You've got an on-campus stadium. Johnny doesn't have any of that in men's basketball in comparison. He obviously has an on-campus arena, but you get my drift. Like I said, I think this is a job that a lot of people would take if it came open. But I like Gus, so I hope it works out because I think Gus is the right guy. But I would not say
or else, Elo.
Or else. I'll keep that in mind for future column ideas. Just use the word or else. Yeah, exactly. But we'll see where that goes. All right. So, hey, speaking of or else, the AP preseason poll, Trace, came out on Monday. UCF, no votes, folks. Hello. 5 Big 12 schools made the top 25, highlighted by Utah at number 12, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Arizona, and Kansas are all in the top 25. Your reaction, Trace, to the AP poll in the top 25?
It's interesting, right? We're in our little bubble here, but I think it goes to show you the relevance or lack thereof of UCF still on the national landscape and why this is an important year. Make or break year, I don't know. You'll hear people start to talk the words hot seat. I don't think there's a hot seat for Gus Malzahn, but
He's had a big extension. He's had a big extension. I don't want
relevance, though. They went to some legacy programs here. Of those 5 you just mentioned, UCF plays 2 of them, both at home, right? So an opportunity to prove that they belong in this Big 12. I mean, I think in certain circles, they got credit for being better than the other programs, having a break-even record, going to a bowl game. There were things they got credit for in the first year in the Big 12 in that transition. But now it's year 2. And all the reasons we just talked about, changing coordinators, calling plays, dipping into the transfer portal, these great recruiting classes of the last couple of years, time to show it. And I think at least amongst voters, they're still skeptical that UCF can show it. No votes, Elo. No votes. I thought they'd throw them a bone somewhere.
To your point, everything UCF did as a G5 member doesn't matter anymore, right? That's the thing. Now you're just another power conference school. So prove it at this level. I think that's what the voters are saying. Prove it at this level. Prove it at the Big 12. By the way, Trace, did you know how many you noticed no G5 teams ranked in the top 25? Think about if UCF was still stuck in the G5. You can't tell me this is a good future for the G5 in college football. They're going to be ignored. You used to defend them. I expect you to defend it right now, right? That's an injustice, right, Trace, like you used to say?
If UCF was still in the American, would they have gotten any votes, Elo?
I'm not sure we'd be favorites, but maybe we would. Who knows? We'll never know.
Time to bring in Adam and our silly game.
Before we get to that, gentlemen, don't forget, we are brought to you by the Cure Bowl and the Orlando Sports Foundation. Join them Friday, December 20th for the staff day at Cure Bowl. They're meeting at Campbell Road Stadium for a fun-filled day of football, all to help raise funds and awareness for cancer research. It's one of the top bowl games to watch each year, and you will not want to miss out on the entertaining pregame festivities and exciting action on the field. At the Cure Bowl, the matchup is always Orlando versus cancer. Join the home team and get your tickets today. Go to curebowl.com to secure your seats. All right, gentlemen, here we go. Here's tonight's game. Easy, simple questions. Nothing out of the ordinary. I'm going to start with this one, Elo, for you first. It's poll season. It's talking season. It's power ranking season. Everyone's coming out with their previews at this point. So, Elo, in your opinion, what is one fair criticism of this UCF football team?
Ooh, just one. Look, I think it's fair to say, can they win a road game? Can they win a road game? They were not very good on the road against quality. The only quality win they had was Boise State. Cincinnati was a terrible team. I don't even count that. Can they win on the road? I think that's a fair question.
Can they really prove that they are the future of college football? Right? And we've been talking about this for a while now. Terry Mohajir and crew have put that national championship behind them a bit, but what's next? And that's why this is such a critical year to show what's next. Can they be the future? Can they make a name for themselves in the Big 12?
All right, let's take the reverse of that question, Trace. What is one misguided take about this UCF football team?
What is one misguided take? Well, I think go back to what Elo was saying. He's skeptical about Ted Roof. Ted Roof has a proven track record of success. So I think a misguided take is perhaps that he's not set up to succeed here at UCF.
I would say one that is misguided is saying that UCF is far away in the Big 12. I don't think they're far away. I think there's a handful of plays with the right tweaks to this roster. You can compete and get to the Big 12 title game. I don't buy that. There's an adjustment period, a transition period. I think they're close. And that's why I think Gus is on edge here, Trace and Adam. Gus knows that. This is a winnable league. And I think it's anybody that suggests that 6-7 is acceptable or, middle of the pack. No, you can make it if the ball bounces your way, but it goes back to, can you win on the road close games?
All right, gentlemen, last one for you. I'll start with you, Eric. This weekend, we saw one of the best individual performances of all time, Steph Curry in the men's basketball gold medal game against France. So a two-parter for you. Elo, first, what is the best individual performance you have ever seen an athlete? And what is the best individual performance you've ever seen from a UCF athlete?
All right, so the best one for UCF, I'll start with that. That's easy. That was Kevin Smith, 2007 in the championship game against Tulsa. He just ran all over him. It was over 300 yards. I still think no UCF athlete has had a better single season and a more exciting season than Kevin Smith 2007. And it was a travesty that he was not in the mix for the Heisman Trophy, Trace. You should have campaigned for him back then with your influence. But anyway.
I had such influence back in 07.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And then, all right, so that would be that. And then non-UCF, now do I have to have seen it in person or could it be just I think historic? I think
you saw it on TV.
Marino,
you can see it on TV.
Well, I was a little kid, so I don't know if this counts. But Dan Marino's 1984 season, 5,000 yards, 48 touchdowns. Back then, when the secondary was allowed to be physical, you could actually cover receivers. I think he would have thrown for like 7,000 yards in today's rules. I think that's the most impressive individual season I've ever seen. But as far as individual game, it's funny you bring up Steph Curry. When you go, I went to Warriors right pregame. The guy shoots from all over the building. It's the best show I've ever seen in person, and it wasn't even the game. So Steph Curry actually in person, if you go with that.
I'm not the biggest basketball guy, but now I have lived to have seen Michael Jordan play. So any number of Michael Jordan moments on the court, buzzer beaters, game winners. So any sort of performances by him, especially in postseason play. I do like the Kevin Smith one, Elo. That was a special season. But we talked about this performance a couple of weeks back, Dylan Gabriel with 600 plus yards, maybe one of the best performances by an individual UCF player. Mind you, that was a loss, but certainly was a tremendous individual performance in that game.
I'd also submit perhaps Shaquem Griffin against Auburn in the Peach Bowl. Pretty good game that day as well.
That was a great choice. Good choice there. Won that game single-handedly. Great defensive performance.
All right. Thank you, Adam. All right, Elo, we've been breaking down this schedule, which will set us up here in a couple more shows for a draft. We'll draft games, but let's talk confidence level. That final stretch of the season, 2 road games, 1 home game. There's a bye in there, November 2 at Arizona State. Talk about travel, going West Coast, bye week. Then you've got West Virginia, you've got Utah. Let's talk that Arizona State game. That's one I've really kind of overlooked on the schedule.
Many do, and that's a game you got to win. I've got it at 80%. If you don't, you got to win this game, or else, Trace, or else. It'll be a long year. Can't win that.
It is an or else. It feels like an or else. I feel like that is a winnable game, Elo. Golly, I'm hesitant to put 80% on a road game. 60%. Elo. I'm
60.
hedging there.
I mean, you're gonna be in Arizona later this week. You can give us the scouting report. That's a big advantage. You could be the key.
Gus sending me out there to scout. Show up to Arizona State practice for 15 minutes and get stretching.
Do the work.
I haven't picked my guaranteed loss game, but I'll tell you what's contender for it, Elo. At West Virginia, 25% chance win that they get a win in Morgantown.
I've got it at 35, which might be the temperature at that game at that time in late November. And I agree. This is the one of all the games for UCF. This is the one I have the least confident in because of the locale. And we remember how West Virginia was so much more physical last year, beating up UCF at home. So I agree.
Then finally, hosting Utah, Black Friday. Maybe the game means something. Maybe there's something on the line for it. Or maybe Utah has clinched a spot in the Big 12 championship game and doesn't need to do a whole lot. I still think that's a 50-50 game. Utah's good. UCF does well at home. Crowd will be rocking. If there's relevance to the game, Elo.
You and I are on the same page. I have it at 50-50 because I don't know what this game is going to mean. Like, it could be for a spot in the Big 12 title game, or it could be Utah resting their players for the Big 12 title game. So I don't know what this is. UCF, it'll be a night game. I do like that for UCF, but we don't know where both teams will end. I'm going to go 50-50. I'm with
50-50. All right, Elo. That's it. That's our confidence in these games. I feel like you're far more confident than I, but you got a bit like 9-10 wins. So you have been more confident all along.
We'll have a final prediction, I'm sure, down the road on the Around the Kingdom. We'll get a final number. Let me give you, though, about Kyle Whittingham, who's predicting that a Super League is coming, Trace. Are you ready for some Super League football? Buying into it?
I'm gonna draw your ire on this one, Elo. I'm fine with it as long as UCF's in it. I've come around on this point. No longer the little engine that could. Hey, they're in. But I think this is where it's heading. Now, whether it's, these TV contracts and such, 5 years, 10 years, you see how much college football has changed. But this is where it's heading. And as much as it's Big Ten and SEC, it's ABC, ESPN, Fox, right? These are the networks controlling these leagues. And that's why you see the moves by Brett Yormark to keep the Big 12 relevant and in the mix, right? So I think it is ultimately heading there. Whittingham won't be a part of it, most likely, as he's announced that, has a couple years left.
Super League is going to happen. I think we all see that. Whether it's good or not, I don't think it's great. I mean, and then, Trace, my question is, are people going to be able to adjust to that? Because if you're in a Super League, 8-4 might be good now. Like that. I mean, how do you define success in a Super League if you're in it?
Well, we've been talking about it for men's basketball and the Big 12, right? Where we were saying, can UCF get to 10 wins, 10-10 in a 20-game schedule? That may be the success you need to get into the NCAA tournament.
Agreed. I don't think a Super League is necessarily beneficial for UCF, but you have to be in it to have a shot. You have no shot. I mean, the polls are telling you the story. The G5s are going to be disappearing sooner or later somehow. They're going to be a split. And in UCF, you have to be in that ship. But it is hard to compete in a league like that. everybody brags about the league. Yeah, we're in the league. We're going to make $30 million. You and I, last I checked, we're not getting a dollar out of that, are we? We're not getting that big piece of the pie from the TV contracts that maybe our schools have. I do think it's a concern about how these schools like UCF compete in a super league.
All right, Elo, you mentioned it as one of your concerns. We've been talking about various stat predictions. Let's talk a little special teams. Let's talk kicking. Do you think Colton Boomer is your field goal kicker, your place kicker throughout the entire season? Or do you see a change there? And then what do you think final stat line will be for Colton Boomer this year?
I think if he's healthy, he'll be the kicker. He was the kicker last year, even through some struggles late. Can he make 75% of his kicks? I think he can. He's proven that. He's got a good leg. I think he has a bounce back year. I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah, I think he has a bounce back year as well. He was particularly candid during spring camp that he wasn't 100% healthy, right? And he was kicking off. Gus Melon has indicated maybe they'll consider Grant Reddick on kickoffs, which would take some pressure off of Colton Boomer. It's all between his ears, right? He's healthy. He can make these kicks. How does he respond when he misses a kick? I think he does have a bounce back year, 75%. It was 13 of 21 last year. Remember the year before that, made everything except one long 64-yard field goal attempt that wasn't even supposed to happen, which of course sets up that, what Tim Harris was talking about during a Monday availability. What happens when a team faces adversity? How do they respond? Colton Boomer faced adversity and struggled a bit, but seemed to tackle it head on in the offseason. I think he has a bounce back year, and I like that 75% or more. It's not even about the quantity. Does he make important kicks when the game is on the line?
Let me ask you this question. For New Hampshire and to some lesser extent, Sam Houston State, would you like to see both Colton Boomer and Reddick kick field goals in those games?
Sure. I have no issue with that at all.
Okay. Just because you don't know how sometimes that can mess with the psyche, but I was curious what your thoughts on it. I agree. Just, you got to have an insurance policy in case things don't get off to a good start or work out. All right. Hey, Trace, guess what? We've made it. UCF Fall Athletics is beginning this week. On Thursday, UCF Women's Soccer will begin its season in Boca Raton, Florida. Shout out to UCF Mike. UCF at FAU, 12th season for Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak. UCF picked 6th in the Big 12 preseason poll. It's now 16 schools, by the way, in the Big 12 that play women's soccer. Trace, what's your big key looking forward to and question you have about women's soccer?
Yeah, it's interesting when you mentioned 6 out of 16, which is the upper, mark in that Big 12 and the addition of these new teams. They're ranked, for whatever preseason rankings matter, behind 2 newcomers, Colorado and Arizona State. They did not fare well with BYU, a fellow newcomer a year ago, lost during the regular season 3-2, lost in the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament 4-1. Do they close the gap there? Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak, longstanding coach now on campus, dozen years, Elo. They'll be competitive. Can they get a little bit healthier this year? They face some injury issues that, knock their depth down a little bit. And I know you have asked this question. Who do they find to replace goalkeeper Caroline Delisle? They have had a strong history of goalkeepers. They're going to need one again to be a force in the Big 12.
That's, to me, the biggest question. They haven't, it's probably going to end up being a freshman. One of them is currently with the Costa Rican under-20 national team. The other one might get to start opening night. We'll see. I think that's the number one question. Half the roster is brand new, Trace. Half the roster is new. Can it all fit in a season in women's soccer, which is like a sprint? Remember, season starts now, ends in November. That's not a lot of time to get built that chemistry, and half the roster is new. They're very excited about this young kid from Nigeria, and Eddie. That's a name to keep in mind. But I don't know. It feels like a rebuild to some extent, but they need some things to break the way. But you're right. It starts at the goalkeeping position. UCF women's goalkeeping position is like the UCF quarterback position. It's one of the most scrutinized positions of all UCF athletics on campus. That will set the tone. You got to be solid on the back line.
And I think this is going to be a question for all sports in year 2 in the Big 12, men soccer in the Sun Belt. Do you make progress year over year?
Absolutely.
Knights were 5-4-1 in the Big 12 in their first year, 10-7-1 overall. Is there progress for women's soccer? All right, time to bring back in Adam. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Educate us, Adam.
All right, really quickly, here we go. Eric, you mentioned you talked to UCF's running back coach. That would be Cam Martin. talked about Auburn's 2013 season. Trey Mason had over 1,800 yards on the ground that year. Nick Marshall had over 1,000 yards rushing, and 2 other guys had 600 yards apiece. So certainly Gus is no stranger to running the football. You want that quote on the special teams from Gus. Here it is. Last year, we stunk on kickoffs, one of the worst in the country. The AP poll came out. Fun fact, Colorado got 1 vote from somebody who probably needs to be drug tested. And lastly, you mentioned Kevin Smith, Elo, that 2007 game against Tulsa, 284 yards on 39 carries and 4 touchdowns. The man was a man amongst giants that day.
Thank you, Adam. That 1 vote, maybe not from the CBS affiliate in Denver, in which Prime ripped into this past week. One more thing before we go, Elo. Full-time student and have some talent. UCF football wants you. Walk-on tryouts, Elo, August 19th at 2:00. Don't you wish you had some eligibility that you could run out there? Because I think the rejection letter would be fine, right? You just frame it. we no longer have an interest in you as place kicker for the UCF Knights. Look for new episodes midweek, every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Later, wherever you get your downloadable audio content. For Adam Eden, Eric Lopez, I'm Trylko. Thanks for being with us for this week's Around the Kingdom.